growing up in the music business, the son of a publisher, the art of the song was big in my house. And the storytelling part especially was what my family, my bloodline was drawn to, the feels. The feels. Not necessarily the hook or the melody, but the story. Tell me a little bit about My Boy, because it kind of like reminded me of the Brad Paisley song that Half the Daddy didn't have to be.
A lot of people made that connection early on. You were telling me a little bit before we came in here about when your dad was kind of at the top of the game there back in the day with the publishing and stuff before he went on to other ventures in life. And back then, I remember, I was a kid back then listening to country music radio, and there was a lot more story-driven stuff going on back then. With My Boy in particular, it was just kind of just tell the truth as much as you can and make it rhyme. But also, there was 4 of us that wrote that song, so it was, a collaboration of stories and experiences between the 4 of us buddies that wrote. We didn't even know we were writing a song that night. We were just hanging out on the porch.
That's the best kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And a friend of mine's mom had sent me a meme on Facebook the night before that said, it was a picture of a little boy, and it said, "I don't have a stepson. I have a son that was born before I met him." And so we were talking about that, and somebody, we tricked my buddy Lee Starr into grabbing a guitar and starting to play something, and grabbed a couple code ones and just sit out there, and somebody said, "He ain't got my smile. That don't bother me a bit. He's got somebody else's eyes. I'm seeing myself in." I was like, dang, I think we're writing a song now,
Wow.
So, and then, like I said, the rest of it was just mixing our experiences. My buddy Russell Sutton, I think he had been in a relationship with a girl that had a little boy for a little while. And I think the stick figure, crayon picture kind of thing came from that. And so even in the writing process, it was pretty universal experience. We had no idea how universal it was going to be.
From a songwriter's perspective, we've had a lot of the greats here. I don't know if I've ever asked them, when you're writing a song that it kind of like that Colin Ray song "Love Me" from the 90s. It was just like one of the most coolest stories ever that took all 3 verses to get to the end of the end of the story. As a songwriter, does it the feels that it gives everybody that hears it, how does that affect you guys in the writing process?
I mean, I always tell people, I'm not a very genre specific based writer or singer, performer, whatever you want to call me. So that word is all I chase, really. I just chase a feeling. If you listen to my first record, second record, you're going to hear a lot of diversity and influence. And I always just tell people, is like, if it makes me feel something when I'm writing it, when I sing it, then I feel like I can evoke that emotion out of someone performing it, so which I love, but also can be a monster to promote or put your finger on sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, man, I mean, I think that song in particular is a third of families in the United States have a step or adopted child,
That's right.
So that hit a lot of nerves. And then the rest of it, I either have to have known the story or, myself, I've had to have been through it, or like there's a song on my second record called 215634 that is one of my oldest childhood friends. It's his number in prison.
Wow.
And so talking to him on the phone and stuff, and he said a couple things. Like one time I tried to send him some money, and he was like, "Oh man, are you kidding?" He's like, "I could do this time standing on my head. I don't need no money." He's like, "It's just like the hollers in the streets in here, man. You just gotta hustle and make your way." And I was like, I grew up in the hollers, and then when I moved to Bowling Green and went to college for a little while, I lived over in the little hood area for a little while. So I got a little bit of both of those worlds, and I always seen a lot of similarities. And one similarity that I seen was that you can feel very stuck growing up in those situations. And so that was how I was able to, really connect with the feeling of where he was at. Like I remember what it was like to feel like I was just stuck somewhere. And he's definitely stuck where he's at. So,
Bowling Green is, believe it or not, we mentioned my dad. My dad was presented the key to the city of Bowling Green a few decades ago because like when I was a kid and before I was even born, They had a residency in Bowling Green that they played all the time in his band that they were in. I don't even know if the hotel and the bar that it was in stayed in. I know when I was a teenager, one of my dad's bandmates was still there in the residency. As a matter of fact, the guy that had done the best in music business as a songwriter, with tons of hits, was still doing that on weekends. And we went up there to hear him, and I sat in with him, which was kind of cool. Dad and I sat in on a couple of songs, which was really neat. I think it was called, it wasn't the Red Carpet Inn, was it? I don't remember, but like seriously, like he spent 2 decades probably in Bowling Green on weekends.
I was there from 2008 to 2012. It started out as a very exciting time in my life, like very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and
yeah,
So I graduated high school, I think in 2006. It's been a long time ago now. I graduated high school in 2006. I spent a couple years as an evangelist. I grew up in a missionary Baptist church, and I preached for a couple years. And then
that's cool.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting time in my life. I however, arrived at this place within it that I wasn't sure that I truly believed everything that I was preaching as much as I had just been taught that my whole life, and I'd never really experienced life for myself to know if that's exactly what I believe. And it's still something that I think about a lot these days and struggle with from time to time. But after that, I left that. I walked away from that and didn't really know what I was doing in my life. And it ended up leading me to Bowling Green. I was like, I'm just going to go to college. I'm going to be the first kid in my family to go to a 4-year college. And so I did my ACTs and did well, got financial aid and all this stuff. And I go, and it's like, I had to go to South Campus though, because I was a problem child, I guess. And it's like you had to get a certain GPA and for a couple semesters to be able to go be on the Hill. And I was just so excited to go be on the Hill. And so I got a 4.0. I was on the dean's list. I won like these writing awards, these writing competitions for poetry and short story stuff. And I still couldn't get on the Hill. And then my natural inclination, my natural inclination at that time, and sometimes still in my life, is just like, all right, well, hell with it, and something I'm definitely still working on. And that's when it went from being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to, it got pretty dark there for a while. So so that's when it started. That's when I started like really partying a lot, experimenting with a lot of drugs, and things just took I'm one extreme or the other, man. I was just preaching 2 years ago, and now I'm
you go all in.
Yeah,
you commit.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm committed to this lifestyle, and I'm also playing music and stuff. And it's like I thank God for these two guys that are still my closest friends, Seth and Chad, and like we really made it through that 2 or 3 years together. And like, if I don't believe if those guys had been in my life, that I really would have made it through those couple years. But I don't even know how I got here. But yeah, I ended up meeting my wife there, and things straightened back out. And then, long story short, things got better, and I ended up here.
That's right.
I wouldn't have been on the Hitstreak podcast at that time in my life, for sure.
But dude, we've all been there, man. Yeah. Like, it's crazy how much can change and happen in 5 years. Like, my entire life changed in 5 years. My entire financial landscape, everything about us, 5 years. I mean, it was literally like a 180-degree change. Yeah, man, I was 27 years old. I got out a notebook and I wrote down 5 things. I wrote, in 5 years, I want to move to Nashville. I want to get a publishing deal. I want to get a song cut by another artist. I want to get a record deal, and I want to get a number one. And that was in 2016, or it was the end of 2015. And then in 2021, I checked off the last thing on that list, and it was the number one with My Boy. So I've got a friend, Jan Beckemeyer, and she always says that there's way more power in writing things down than we give it credit for. And I never like went back and dug that out and actually checked those things off. I just wrote that one day, and I knew that was like burned in my brain. And
again, though, I was very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when I got here, and so it's been a struggle the last few years to kind of come up with that new list,
Yeah.
It's like I've kind of done. You get to a point where you maybe have like done everything I feel like in a lot of ways I've done just about everything I ever really dreamt of doing, and then it's like, well, what do you do now? Because I go all in on things, right? So it's like I don't know what to go all in on just yet. I think that's important times in life too. Is just like the struggle of figuring out where to go next makes where you go next worth it.
Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe for more, and visit nickhyder.com.